Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a very interesting session about decentralized. Shout it closer like this. Okay. Welcome to the session about decentralized finances. It's not the hottest topic, but it's very relevant. And we got two great experts here today. Better like this, closer like this. So we got Oliver Schulbaum, who is from the Goteo Foundation and Platonic, who's really involved in how social innovation is happening and how it has an influence on decentralized finance models. And Ferran Reyes, who has also a great experience in technology. Also, he's coming also from Goteo Foundation, also related on social innovation, and he will explain better the technical part of it. And he's working out for Caelum Labs. I start with Ferran. Maybe you can add something to the introduction, but you will talk about how technology, the blockchain technology, can change how communities can be empowered, right? That's the main focus point. So one of the things is blockchain. This is the big technology that no one really understands, and you're an expert in it. So maybe you can start explaining a bit about blockchains and how is blockchain going to change confidence between communities and between people who normally have no confidence.
Okay. Basically, blockchain is, let's say, a neutral technology, so we can use it. We can. Is a protocol. Is that each project and each person and each technology can understand. Blockchain is not a technology per se. It's a kind of technology. We have several projects built in this conception of the technology. Basically, it allows to transfer value over internet, over networks. That is something new, something that didn't happen on the past. In internet, you can send information, but when I send to you one ticket for one concert, you don't know if I still have the ticket. Blockchain technologies allow you to know that I don't have the ticket anymore, so you can use the ticket. I can transfer value, I can transfer the property. This is the main thing. And on top of this, we can build other infrastructures and create trustless infrastructure. No, in a tribe, if you ask me to borrow you 1,000 euros, I do it because I trusted you. I know that you. All my life, I saw you on the tribe. I know who are your family. I know you every day on the streets. But when we scale societies, this trust is not the main way in which we transfer value or we create big communities. We can still build small communities, but we can't scale this in a big level. So blockchain allow you that to create infrastructures that allow me that if you are from another country, I don't know anything about you, allow me to send you 1,000 euros and trust in the process between. So we can create insurance models or anything in between or transaction then that gives me some insurance, some allows me to do these transactions with more security than before. So I don't need to trust in you specifically. I can trust in the technology itself.
Okay, so it really is about we have a tool because we've seen we've had talks about many projects which were very local, and you say now we have a tool to make possible that communities who are local, they can easily cooperate because we can guarantee trust, right? Could you give examples of things that will be possible thanks to the blockchain technology? And you say somehow that you should understand the revolution of blockchain as the same revolution what internet provoked, no? Because in the beginning, yeah, what is internet? What is it going to do? And it was hard to imagine. And now internet is everywhere. And you say the disruption that blockchains will impose is of the same kind of, like, it shifts the paradigm completely. So could you explain what these community projects we explained before, what is the benefit of blockchain technology for them? What will it be?
Okay, basically, two of the features, let's say, that blockchain has for communities and for projects. One is standards. So create a language that each project can understand. So if, for example, Goteo wants to work with other crowdfunding platforms in the technology side and interact with the big communities and allow people from one crowdfunding platform to work with another crowdfunding platform, we have to create this infrastructure. Blockchain gives something that is super interesting, that is the network effect. So it creates a platform in which we can have users, and these users can interact with the project that they want freely, because they are already part of the platform. If we want to create this like in isolated or in islands of projects, it's more difficult to scale this. So basically, imagine that if I have Gmail and you have Hotmail, I can send to you emails. But wow, this is two companies working together. No, I mean, for me, it's useful that I can send to you an email. But why Gmail wants to work with Hotmail? I mean, they can say, I don't know, my emails only will arrive to the emails made by my company. This is because we have a layer that is a standard, is the email standard over internet, that is SMTP or POP3, that works, and this is the language that the two companies understand.
And maybe because this is still really abstract, and like most people need an example to grasp what we talk about. You talk about small contracts, right? This is an example of a technology that will be possible thanks to blockchain. Could you explain, for instance, we talked about cooperative, like, let's say, Mobilitat, a currenting platform. How could they use this blockchain technology to use small contracts in their thanks to this blockchain technology?
Good question. I don't create use cases, but smart contracts basically is programming rules and programming programs like applications. So the best, the objective of blockchain, let's say, of blockchain projects, is to work as a regular application. So you don't need to know that you are using blockchain. And each project will have something new, that is that if somebody that creates its application, for example, to create, I mean, they need to do this car sharing model, blah, blah, blah. They can operate and share information with other companies that are doing the same, other cooperatives around Europe. And the users can have their own self-sovereign identity. That is a vault, a wallet, where they have their identity, and they have the credentials that somebody that give to these users. And these users can go to Belgium and use Partago or whatever exists there. And it's the same protocol. So they don't need to create application that interact with the other application. They don't need to make the protocol interact with each other. I mean, they don't only need to integrate the protocols in their own applications.
Okay. Maybe I'll switch to Olivier, and you can give us a short presentation about Goteo project, and then we will see how will it affect the digital technology with the social innovation.
Okay, so in the next 20 minutes, I won't pronounce the word blockchain. So we keep that for, all right? But we will speak about decentralized finances. So I like this picture because if you think about like community currencies, actually, we were supposed to have the REC community currency in the panel, but they're not here. But But actually, as part of the Goteo, which is a civic crowdfunding platform, we are collaborating with REC to build an API which is basically allowing us to transform euros into REC. So we make sure that financing is also about hybridization of different models. So I will tell you about that, but actually not that much about organization, but of a couple of stories that tells where when we use decentralized trust between citizens in the city, we can get to unsuspected areas, and we work a lot on what we call below the radar, and I will explain you that. So basically, I have a question which is a bit surrealistic in this whole environment, in the sharing cities environment, which is our first circle of trust, and then we wouldn't have that many circle of trust with technologies around that space. So talking about safer space, we keep that conversation for after. So what do crowdfunding, social change, anti-racist campaign, and fair trade have in common? So I will tell you a little bit story. So you know all of these. So talking about decentralized financing, we also could talk about that black market. So basically illegal street vending. Actually, have you tried to thought about like who's behind the blanket? So what's the stories of the people behind it? All right. So it's not about like I use the idea of a radar. It's just not in a positive way. So there's a few people who are just like absolutely no right to be even part of the visibility schemes, right? And basically, some organization couldn't be funded even because they're totally informal. So this is where we're the best in making sure that we transform invisibility into power. So basically, think about that. All these behind the street vendors, we have people fighting for political influence and their own rights. So think about like how bad the legislation in Spain is and institutional racism, which is basically what all these street vendors are trying to tackle. But you just need to make sure that they build a circle of trust and the joining forces, but they also need to exist as a local organization and a legal one. So basically what we have created is a campaign on Goteo, which is basically to enable stronger participation of Monteros, which are street vendors, in society and being recognized by reclaiming the right of existing, being legalized, and being social entrepreneurs, which is most important. So basically, we think about like getting your right by socially being an entrepreneur. So basically what they've done is a beautiful campaign, and it's very, very smartly designed. So it's basically about creating a popular labor union of street vendors. I'll tell two stories, and they both use the idea of a syndicate, which is and unions, which is basically coming back. So I think we should think about a blockchain syndicates and unions. So that's for the end of the panel. And basically what they have created is an ethical, social, and solidarity brand, which is committed to changing the society and improve lives of the most vulnerable. So that's just amazing. So this is basically a legal trademark made by illegal people. Some of them become legal by being entrepreneurs. That's sad, but that's the story. So basically where crowdfunding is needed and how we understand crowdfunding. So basically the life of Monteros do create impact also. So it's very smart, and they have been incubating, and now they're cooperative. So apart from being a union, now they're cooperative. So basically also Goteo helps all these organizations jumping, appearing below the radar, coming to the visibility level, and then grow with a set of values which are all there. So human rights, sustainable development, so it's fair trade, organic textiles. So it's very interesting. They're still street vendors, but it's a legal trademark. Okay, so I won't talk that much about the platform and the technology behind it. Maybe after it, it's not that interesting, but we have all. So we completely open source. All our API are open source. All our data are shared and analyzed. So I would like to be at the other side of the space, which is basically researchers, because we have so many interesting data, but we need more like impact researchers to work with them. Because it's about stories, but also about data. So we can dialogue with cities, we can dialogue with researchers, with academics, and with citizens, which is basically amazing. So basically, when we designed Goteo, we thought, okay, can we ensure that when crowd is at the beginning of the chain, looking about chain, involved in funding, can we make sure that at the end of the chain, we have crowd benefits for the whole society? So it's not only me getting the book, cheaper because I'm the first to donate and get the book. So that's basically nothing. That's just another way of doing capitalism. We're thinking about crowd benefits. So basically, this is basically why we've spent a year and a half building the standards behind it, so the data model, and what the experience should be, and that made the platform very effective in that sense. So we are open. We're sorry about that. It's like when you smoke, right? You know that smoking can kill. So being open can kill, but it's not only killing us. We're pretty sustainable, but it's also, if you're an administration and you not really know what this means, being open, using blockchain, social contracts, you're taking a risk. So you'd better work with us to ensure that you won't fail in it. So basically, again, we have a standard behind it. So in Goethe, you can ask for money, task from other people, infrastructures, and material goods. And of course, we do have incentives for people basically funding all the projects. But we do have licenses, open licenses. So basically, all these social return of these projects, which are funded in Goethe, it's very unique in Europe, are linked to when they do produce, for example, a manual, a code, a platform, then it's shared on the free license schemes, right? So it's almost 10 million now, exclusively for building data commons and building social impact around cooperatives and around what we call crowdvocacy, which is basically mobilizing and making sure citizens influence politics. So we do pretty know well people who are needing this type of schemes, don't have that much time, and we also do know well institutions which we convinced to match the citizens' basically funding. So basically each euro, or if I'm giving 50 euros to Top Manta, then there's an institution that multiplies the donation by 50. So if you think about that, it's not only an institution. Think about like ethical banking, or think about like COP57 here, which is cooperatives on, which can match with all the types of funding, which is not donation-based, but with equity-based. So that's very interesting, because donation and crowdfunding is a way of building trust in the community and talking to institutions, and then being matched by other type of funding which they would never access to. All right, so this is basically about jumping from one platform to the other. We do believe that civic crowdfunding is a powerful instrument to influence politics and policy making. And I'm telling very, very quickly, which is talking about crisis of the rents in Barcelona raising up. Another example would be Sindicat de Llogaters, which is basically a resident-led organization which run what we call crowdvocacy campaign on Goethe, so basically influencing politically and being funded at the same time to form a tenant union to protect rights of housing and fair rents in Barcelona. So they do need funding to exist. So basically, the union was funded and legally formed through the campaign, but also influencing all, in parallel in different platforms, but also like with lots of human lobby, human bandwidth, and for example, has obtained very concrete impacts, like the measure which was applied is basically guaranteeing that 30% of sheltered housing in new developments in the Urban Planning Commission it would be accepted. So that's small victories that they get out of all these funding schemes. So this distributed finances is sort of distributing, influencing on how you can really make sure that your impact is growing around. So this is basically, and I will stop here. This is basically what we've learned a lot from both working as Platonic on decision platforms and both with Goteo. So basically we're talking about the kind of activism which is about like making sure that the citizens' influence in public life is basically transferred into crowdvocacy, which is making like law changes municipally, nationally, etc. So it's basically a curve of engagement. So if you think about the radar I was talking about, this radar of visibility is just about awareness, but think about all these steps that through crowdfunding and political participation, all these projects and these new type of entity can grow from engagement and making sure we do get legal changes, right? And this is basically a nice discussion we could have on UX of all these political actions. It's incredible that when you do put money in a project of Top Manta on Goteo, you're really doing activism with your credit card. Very strange. All right? And you just like forget about this gesture, but it's there. And when you participate in a municipal participation platform, it's a direct democracy platform. You need to enter your ID. So you need also like to, you know, it's not a question of trust so much about what the municipality will do with your ID, but we have another conversation we should have, and this is where blockchain will help. So we're working on a scheme we call on and with different organizations on transparency, such as CIVIO, for example, which I'm a board member of, about basically making sure that we have a standard to measure our impact between different platforms. And I can't remember what I was saying. But anyway, I think you know where we're going, right? You need to have like us growing these curves until like, we make sure. What did I want to say? I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Olivier. So you talk more about the part of social, how to create like social networks, and how do you didn't really talk about finance, is it right? So that's the beautiful thing. So how do you see it that it's like you create local communities and you organize value in local communities? And how, because you didn't say the word finance and you didn't use the reference to any technology. So how do you think that is like, how could technology be helpful to scale your project or to have a bigger impact on your project?
And yes. I can't do shorter as this. So basically, the beautiful thing about it is that I don't have to talk about financing and I don't have to talk about technology, and even I don't have really to talk about platforms. It's about citizen lobby. There's money involved in it, but it's just about like, you know, it's just a way of growing our impact on laws and reclaiming, you know, our rights. So I could talk about how blockchain would be integrated in Goteo. It's not that interesting. There's only one thing where for Goteo, blockchain has a reason to exist. Since we are a foundation, so if you're helping Top Manta, we have an API which basically gives you a certificate, donation certificate, and you get 70% from the hacienda locally back. So the beautiful thing is like if you 70% will be invested in another project, so that's cool too. So basically what the problem from that is like if you're not a Spanish resident, since we are a Spanish foundation, you couldn't get, you know, this is your right by helping digital commons to be built, by financing them, this is your right that public money is coming back to your own wallet. So basically this is where blockchain is interesting for us, and we're building a network of different foundations which basically through blockchain, donations can be tracked and the certification can be tracked. So if I'm from Belgium, King Baudouin Foundation, who's able to produce a certificate, so you reclaim as a Belgian citizen your 70% to the local hacienda. That's possible through blockchain because it's basically a network of trust. So basically, you would get your money back from the public for the public money from your from your local country. So that's just make the digital commons on a building by financing or by contributing in any form much more effective.
Okay, that was not so short indeed. To Ferran, Olivier also talked a lot about it. When you talk about these decentralized models, you kind of want to shift power relations, and I guess many public administrations they don't trust these processes, no, because you're kind of you're destabilizing the system. So how do you see the role of public administrations, and how can they keep being confident in this whole project of blockchain and decentralized currencies?
I think they should facilitate. I mean, the public administrations have to change their position of authorities, and the monopoly of the authority, and to become facilitators that allow to create public commons, digital commons, and so on. Nowadays we have Goteo that is working for crowdfund. Barcelona also is working in Decidim, that is this platform that allow people to vote and to debate in political issues and social issues on the city, and also is becoming now also a standard, let's say. But we need a platform in which all these organizations and all these levels of participations speak the same language, and we are in the same point. No, the public institutions have to take this language and put it on the roots of the public administration and become part of this ecosystem. They can't be, they can't have the monopoly of the information anymore. They can't have the monopoly of citizen participation anymore. Now we have a tool that allows accountability, open accountability. This is amazing. I mean, people can share how much they participate and how much they donate, how much, in which projects they donate exactly, which is the interest of citizens. I mean, people maybe is interested in green, in create new green spaces. The public administrations can know it now, just looking at which projects citizens bake in Goteo. We have to create this open data, and we have to create the tools using these standards, these protocols, to make it to interact with all the organizations, all the companies, all the public administrations.
I'd say something about that, and I have a slide for it, so thank you very much. Basically, you all know about these SDGs, right? So they're everywhere. So basically, we have a problem here of I'm going to explain them. Of dialoguing between institutions and citizens. So we're not trusting each other. We don't talk the same language, basically. So I was very doubtful about the effect of SDGs, but we don't have that sort of sustainable development goals, which is a framework which is pretty institutional. But it's a chance for us, because basically we know where exactly the policymakers in charge of SDG 5, which is gender equality, are. So on their door, they know the number 5, 6, 7 of the SDGs representing them, so we can talk to them. And in Goteo, we have data that basically tells them about how to measure SDGs on a local, very, very local, in the city of Barcelona, for example, by analyzing the needs and from the projects which have been funding in Goteo. Basically, Goteo is a barometer of what a more ethical society should be. So we have data that talks to that we just basically put on the table of the policymakers. And what I'm explaining here is like, really citizens don't really care about SDGs, but they probably cares about, so what's your ecological footprint? Everybody understands it, right? But what if we invent another type of footprint, which is a social footprint, and what about the democratic footprint? Right? So basically we have reorganized all the SDGs, applied them to the data of Goteo, and just like the citizen would just see them through the lenses of, let me see, or if I'm an academic, analyze all the projects that have a democratic impact. And they're impacting on different SDGs. So policymakers will have their report on SDGs, but the citizens will see through a citizen lens. So that's basically, these type of things are as much important as the type of technology we're developing, the type of language and iconography we're creating.
Maybe could you give one example of a local project? So I retain of what you said, and I have to say that public administrations don't have to be afraid. It will also lead to more transparency, and it will be easier to see where community puts its commitments, such as sustainable development goals, what project should be developed that follow these commitments. So could you give some examples? You're working for Goteo Foundation. What examples here in Barcelona and Catalonia work on these three values you mentioned?
Well, basically in Goteo Foundation we have people working for each of these footprints, because in them, each individually have different indicators, so we don't have time to speak about that. But what is interesting, where we can influence the most, is how to incubate all these citizen projects that needs money. Because basically what we have, the type of data we have is like financial needs, contribution needs. We can measure in hours of Fab Labs needs. I need a laser cutter, and we can calculate how many hours. If we gather all the makers project funded in Goteo, we can influence on, let's say, designing new type of incubation programs. So that's a very specific details. So let me show you that. It's not only about Goteo. The beautiful thing is like, what if we cross decision-making platforms data with Goteo's data and analyze activism in a city. So we have an example that we're crossing data from the city in Barcelona and Goteo. And what you see here is like filtering by each of the SDGs, or rather through the scopes of these 3 footprints. We could compare and have a study which actually we did on how these type of community are crossing in different moments and which type of activism is more effective. So here you see sessions where they had a collection of signature for petitions, and at the same time funding the organization which is in charge of this mobilization decision campaign in the city. So we're talking about a standard that could be applied to different platforms, and it would be much more stronger. So we wouldn't speak about only the data that you can analyze in Goteo, but in many different participation platforms. So this could grow rapidly to some indicators we could share together between different platforms and internationally too. So you can clearly now, that's why we need researchers. I can tell you exact details of how we can improve all that and how these data visualization can influence the improvement of our user experience as citizens in this type of participatory platform. But it's surely there because the data is there, the framework is there. We have people working with data there, and we need researchers just being able to understand that, and that basically make these data alive. And then the decision-making, influencing would be much more powerful. We can't do that as a foundation in itself.
I want to open up, if the public, you have questions, because this is like a very broad topic. Ferran, you want to add something before I open up the discussion?
So basically, like following up this path that Olivier opened, basically blockchain allows something, not blockchain, like ledger technologies and decentralized technologies allow something that it was not easy on the past. That is, have a platform in which you can do what we say duocracy. So every person can see what is happening on the network, which data is transferred on the network, and can create application using these standards. So we don't need. I mean, in my own home, only with a computer, I can build an application that works with Goteo, if Goteo use these technologies, without asking Goteo if I can do that. And this allows a really big opportunity, because there is a lot of people interested in change things in the world, and we now have the platform to do it, as well as internet did it in the past. Now we can open a blog only doing 2 clicks. Blockchain is allowing to do that with data and with transfer value, with all these economic models that are appearing. And one thing that is important is that commons needs also accountability, because without accountability, commons can't exist. I mean, there is commons there is something that we can share, but if we don't have accountability, these commons will disappear. So now we have the opportunity to have a open accountability that is global, and that's amazing for build this any application that we imagine.
Thank you a lot. I think it's very interesting. I want to open it up if people from the public, if you have questions to ask, if you want to have specific some case studies, I give you the microphone. If anyone wants to ask something, you can just raise your hand and I will pass you the microphone, but I see no questions. Maybe then I will pick on the last thing you said, because this is what kind of opening. Could you give some examples of, you said, concrete examples of how commons can interact and can professionalize? Because when you say don't have an accountability, it also is like professionalize. No, this is one of the obstacles nowadays. What do you see are concrete outputs that we can have within some years?
For example, now before we had the Giphy Foundation, that is this foundation that is building these community networks. One of the things that is needed for this community network is to have an open accountability. So all the ecosystem can know who invests to build infrastructure, this optic fiber or these connections, who owns it, and we need to create a model in which that is fair for all the members. Because if it's not fair for me, I will skip the model and create my own model. So you know, infrastructure is something that is illiquid. it's difficult to transfer and to know who owns each part of the network. But if we have a layer in which we can convert this illiquid infrastructure to something liquid, like tokens, and give to these tokens, for example, rights of governance or some dividends, or allow people that own these tokens that are representing part of a share of this network to decide in where they want to invest, or they want to expand the network. This is bringing some security to the network, to the commons, because now we can manage the commons in a more efficient way than before, because before we didn't know who owns what. And
I will be very short. Before I said we need to tell stories and not numbers, but we have numbers. I mean, it's almost 10 million raised to build new commons, which were not existing before Goteo was existing. No administration would just like invest not so much money. So we have numbers, which makes our power too. We have data, we have numbers, and they're very well organized. So we can really, prove that mission has a sense.
Second. Susana? Yeah? Okay, so thank you both. Thank you, Ferran. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, the public, for being here, and I hope you learned something, and they're here for further questions.